Attraction doesn't die slowly the way people like to believe. It doesn't fade because of time, boredom, or routine. Those are just symptoms. Attraction dies in a very precise psychological moment, and once it happens, it almost never comes back the same way. Most people miss this moment because it doesn't look dramatic. There's no argument, no betrayal, no obvious breaking point. On the surface, everything may even seem fine. But internally, something fundamental shifts in the way one person perceives the other. And perception, not emotion, is what attraction actually depends on. Attraction is not built on love, kindness, or shared history. Those things can keep people together, but they do not create desire. Attraction is built on tension, uncertainty, respect, and psychological polarity. When one of these collapses, attraction doesn't weaken, it shuts off. The exact moment attraction dies is the moment one person stops seeing the other as a psychologically independent being. The moment they are no longer perceived as autonomous, self-directed, and emotionally grounded. From that second on, desire begins to feel forced, artificial, or even uncomfortable. This is where most people get confused. They think attraction dies because someone changed. In reality, attraction dies because the way someone is perceived changes. And perception is shaped by behavior, not intention. One of the fastest ways attraction collapses is through emotional overexposure. When a person reveals too much emotional dependency, too quickly, without regulation, the subconscious message received is not intimacy, it is instability. The human brain is wired to associate attraction with safety and strength. Emotional flooding sends the opposite signal. This doesn't mean vulnerability kills attraction. That's a popular misunderstanding. Vulnerability only builds attraction when it is grounded in self-control and emotional maturity. When vulnerability turns into emotional leakage, constant reassurance seeking, over-explaining feelings, or needing validation to function, attraction starts to die. Another critical moment attraction collapses is when respect erodes. Respect is not about politeness. It's about perceived value. The moment someone senses that you tolerate behavior that goes against your own boundaries, your perceived value drops. And attraction cannot exist without perceived value. This is why people often say, "I don't know why, I just don't feel the same anymore." Their conscious mind can't explain it, but their subconscious already recalculated the balance of power. Once that internal recalculation happens, desire no longer feels natural. There is also a neurological component to this. Attraction is heavily linked to dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with anticipation and reward. Dopamine is released when there is uncertainty, challenge, and emotional movement. When everything becomes predictable, when reactions are guaranteed, dopamine levels drop. And without dopamine, attraction becomes dull. But predictability alone doesn't kill attraction. Emotional predictability does. When someone always reacts the same way, always forgives immediately, always explains themselves, always adjusts, they stop triggering curiosity. And curiosity is essential for attraction to survive. The exact psychological moment attraction dies is often the moment one person realizes, "I no longer have to try." When effort disappears on one side, attraction begins to collapse on the other. Attraction depends on seeing someone as a complete individual, not as a role. The moment someone becomes the anxious one, the clingy one, or the one who always adapts, their identity shrinks. And attraction does not attach to reduced identities. This is why people lose attraction even in long-term relationships without realizing why. Over time, one partner may abandon parts of themselves to maintain harmony. They stop expressing disagreement, stop pursuing independent goals, stop asserting preferences. What they think is love slowly becomes self-erasure. And attraction cannot survive self-erasure. There is also a moment when attraction dies due to emotional imbalance. When one person invests far more emotionally than the other, the dynamic shifts from mutual desire to obligation. And obligation is incompatible with attraction. Desire is chosen. Obligation is endured. This imbalance often creates guilt in the less invested partner. And guilt is a powerful attraction killer. When someone starts associating you with pressure instead of freedom, attraction fades quickly. Not because you did something wrong, but because the emotional load became too heavy. Another precise moment attraction dies is when authenticity is replaced by performance. When someone starts acting a certain way just to maintain interest, they lose psychological congruence. The other person may not consciously notice, but subconsciously they sense something is off. Humans are extremely sensitive to incongruence. Attraction requires internal alignment. When words, actions, and emotional state don't match, trust at a subconscious level erodes. And without trust, attraction becomes fragile. It's also important to understand that attraction is not symmetrical. It doesn't die at the same time for both people. One person often experiences the shift first, and once that shift happens, their behavior changes subtly. Less initiative, less eye contact, less emotional engagement. The other person senses this and often reacts by trying harder. Ironically, this accelerates the loss of attraction. Trying to fix attraction directly almost always makes things worse. Attraction is a byproduct, not a decision. You cannot argue someone into desire. You cannot negotiate attraction. The more you try to force it, the clearer it becomes that it's already gone. There is also a deeper evolutionary layer here. Attraction evolved as a mechanism to select psychologically stable and capable partners. When someone appears emotionally destabilized, directionless, or overly dependent, attraction naturally shuts down. This is not cruelty. It's biology. This is why attraction often dies after repeated emotional breakdowns, constant insecurity, or unresolved internal chaos. The brain associates the person with emotional labor rather than emotional reward. One of the most painful realizations is that attraction can die even when love remains. Love is attachment. Attraction is desire. They operate on different systems. Many relationships survive without attraction, but they do not feel alive. And once attraction dies, bringing it back requires more than effort. It requires a fundamental shift in perception. Not convincing words. Not apologies. Not promises. Perception changes only when behavior changes consistently over time. The uncomfortable truth is this: attraction dies the moment someone stops choosing themselves. The moment their sense of identity becomes conditional on being wanted. From that point on, desire no longer flows naturally, it feels extracted. This is why the healthiest form of attraction comes from two people who do not need each other to be whole. They choose each other. And choice is infinitely more attractive than need. If you've experienced attraction fading, the instinct is to chase answers in the other person. But the real answer is almost always internal. Attraction doesn't disappear randomly. It responds to psychological signals. The moment attraction dies is not loud. It's quiet. It's subtle. And by the time most people notice it, it already happened long ago. Understanding this doesn't guarantee you can save every connection, but it does give you something far more valuable: clarity. And clarity is the first step toward rebuilding attraction the right way, or letting go without confusion. Because attraction is not something you beg for. It's something you embody.